Hey guys, and welcome back to another What I Eat in a Week. I'm so happy you're here. So, I started off Monday with a little emergency, which is kind of this like vitamin drink. I definitely don't have these every day, just every once in a while when I want to boost up my little vitamins, get all those nutrients. And yeah, it's pink and it tastes really good, so it's fun. And I decided for breakfast to try baked oats for the first time. Now, these have been so big for so long and I've never tried them. And I love oatmeal, so I'm like, why would I not love this, right? And it's basically like a cake for breakfast. And so, because it's a little Halloween fall edition, I wanted to make them, fun and festive. So I went with pumpkin and I just basically replaced the banana in the recipe with pumpkin instead because I couldn't seem to find like a pumpkin baked oats for whatever reason. And they turned out amazing. I made a little bit of pumpkin cheesecake frosting to go on top, which is just pumpkin tofutti and so good. I also took my little probiotic, my coconut probiotic that I take all the time, and my B12 and my vitamin D that I take every day. I'm not a doctor, just the stuff I take that I love, makes me feel good, and I just took them out of the oven once they were done, and I topped them with my little pumpkin cream cheese. Oh, guys, when I tell you that they were absolutely delicious, they weren't too sweet, and they weren't too savory either. They were like this perfect, because I was afraid they were going to be too sweet, because I definitely can't do super, super sweet breakfasts in the morning, but wow, they were so good. A little bit later, I had just a cut up apple for a snack, and then the rest of the day, I was out actually running errands, and it took way longer than what it was supposed to. So we actually stopped by Tyler's mom's, and she made us some of these little Italian dessert cookie things. They're called pizzellis, I think, and they're so delicious. So we just chowed down on a bunch of those as like basically my lunch. So what I was supposed to make for lunch turned into what I was going to make for dinner, which is a curry coconut soup, which looked absolutely amazing. So it's just some carrots and onions and a bunch of aromatic spices that I cooked off. And I also had a piece of bread with butter because I was dying. I was so hungry. So after that, I cut up some green beans. There's a can of chickpeas in there. So many good things, and then a can of coconut milk to make it nice and creamy. And then the recipe suggested that you could add cumin tofu on top and serve it over rice to make it more of like a meal. So that's what I did, and it was so delicious. The tofu on top, I put a little bit of tofutti. It was so warm and I was so hungry, and I burnt my tongue on it because I was so hungry, but I devoured the whole bowl so quick. So I woke up and it was super rainy and windy outside, and I thought, this is the perfect opportunity to make some homemade apple cider. Do you know this is the first time I've had apple cider this whole season? Like, that's a crime. So I cut up some apples, some cinnamon sticks, a little bit of brown sugar. My dad also, shout out, got me a little hash brown to tide me over while I was cooking. Very nice. The recipe also called for orange juice, or half an orange, and I only had orange juice. So I hope that's not a crime to put that in instead, but it tasted delicious in the end. So I let that simmer for 2 hours covered, and then I decided to make some pumpkin French toast with my just egg, because it's so cool to finally have liquid just egg in Canada. So I decided to make some of that, and it turned out so crispy. And lol, I had to bring the crock pot up from the basement, and I used it as a carrying device for all the other things I had to bring up from the pantry. Think smarter, not harder, kids. For dinner, I was going to make a chili. So we got some kidney beans, some quinoa, some crushed up tomatoes, some frozen bell peppers that I had from a while ago. I put a can of cream corn and a can of regular corn because one can never have too much corn. And I chopped up a full onion as well. Look at my French toast. It looks like skulls. And the camera's shaking because I was laughing at how cute I thought it looked. Just adorable. I put some maple syrup on top. It was so good because the just egg actually helped it get crispy, because I feel like all vegan French toast doesn't get crispy without like that egg thing, and it was delicious. Then after 2 hours of simmering the apples, I just had to crush them up and then let it simmer again for an hour uncovered this time. After that, I strained it and then I left it on the heat while I took Bandit for a walk. And when I say it was absolutely like pouring, I mean pouring, like look how wet I got. It was crazy, but it was so nice to have a really warm cup of apple cider to come back to. It was everything you want in a cup of cider, and it made the house smell incredible. It was delicious. I could not recommend the recipe enough. It was so, so good. And then for the chili, I went off the recipe a little bit. I added some soy sauce and a little bit of cocoa powder for some like earthiness and like depth of flavor. And I am going to post all the recipes because a bunch of you have been requesting it. But just for warning, I do usually make little alterations and switch things up because I always think of little fun things to add. So just a warning that it might not turn out exactly the same as what I did, but they'll still be really good recipes just as they are. For lunch, I decided to make my favorite dan dan noodles, which guys, I literally made so much at one point that I got sick of it and had to stop eating it. And you know me, I don't really like leftovers. That's how good this meal is. It's so simple, it's so easy. I serve it up with some cucumbers because it's spicy, and then you got the cucumbers which like cut the spice, and it's just sensational. So if you're having chili, of course you gotta have cornbread. So I'm making my little 1-pan cornbread. Now technically it's 1 bowl. But sue me, you know, your girl doesn't like dishes, so I just mix it all in the pan and it works perfectly well. So it's a super easy recipe. Mix it all together. I bake it at 350 and it is the perfect cornbread every single time. And peep the new oven. I know, very exciting. So I serve the chili up with some lime juice, a little bit of hot sauce and sour cream. I'm out of my Frank's Red. I'm so sad. Don't talk about it. But I served it up with the cornbread and it was 10 out of 10, insanely delicious. And then for dessert, I had one of my little peanut butter cups that I got for my birthday. They are so good. So I needed a super quick little small breakfast, if you will. So I just had a little bit of granola and oat milk, which was really, really good. Just kind of refreshing and fun in the morning. And when I got home later, these bagels were just like staring me down. So I just had to make a breakfast bagel. I didn't have a choice. I was also in the mood for a chai latte, and I love the Costco chai mix. It's so good. It just hits right every time. So for the breakfast bagel, I just topped one side with some tofutti and chia seeds and nutritional yeast. Added a just egg on top with a little bit of black pepper. And then on the other side of the bagel, I put some spicy chipotle mayo, a little slice of tofurkey. My mouth is watering just looking at it. And of course, I spilled a little bit of the chai latte while I was pouring it. And look how good I got this milk frother for my birthday. Look at that restaurant quality froth. It's everything that I ever hoped for and everything that I ever dreamed. Look how frothy that is. It's amazing. And by accident, I made this cute little teddy bear. How cute, like completely accidental. How cute is that? Not the fanciest breakfast of the week, but has to be one of my favorites. So good. For lunch, I saw these stuffed mushrooms that were like stuffed with spinach and like cream cheese and stuff, and they looked so good. So I took a little bit of tofutti, I cut up some spinach, and I seasoned it with just garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper, and then I popped them into the top of the mushroom cap. And I also topped it with a little bit of vegan cheese as well. And I air fried them for like 10 minutes, I think, on 400, and they were good. They weren't my favorite thing ever because I feel like the mushroom on the outside was just a little bit bland. Like I could have maybe brushed them with a little bit of garlic butter and they would have been really good. But yeah, they were good. They just weren't like my favorite thing ever. And then later I had a snack of a peanut butter cup and a little banana as well. For dinner, I saw the fall version of the baked feta pasta, but with squash, and I just knew I had to do it because it looked so divine. So I cut up a butternut squash and I seasoned it with a little bit of garlic butter with some like chopped up parsley that just I could have eaten by the spoonful, to be honest. And then you add in the block of feta in the middle, and I roasted it at 375, and the house smelt so amazing. And it was super easy to make as well. Super simple, quick kind of dinner thing. I blended it all up just to make it nice and smooth with a little bit of soy milk. And it tasted like a really decadent mac and cheese, if that makes sense. I wasn't mad about it. It was so good. And I also had a little glass of apple juice with it. So for breakfast, I saw this apple loaf recipe, which is something I've never made before, but that sounded so good. And it wasn't a vegan recipe, but I just decided to veganize it to the best of my abilities, and it turned out amazing. So I just creamed the butter and sugar by hand because I'm fancy like that, and I was too lazy to get out the actual mixer. And I just used a flax egg instead of the regular egg, and just oat milk instead of regular milk, which it worked out amazingly. And it was so good because there's spiced apples in the middle of it that, oh, chef's kiss. And while I was waiting for the apple loaf to cook, I had an old avocado that was kind of going bad, so I just made some avo toast on some baguette with a little bit of chipotle mayo, and I also made myself a little hash brown in the air fryer. Delicious. Such a simple breakfast, but it always hits the spot. And then once the apple loaf came out of the oven, I just served it up with a little bit of butter, and it was so delicious. 10 out of 10 would recommend. That afternoon, I went to the pumpkin patch, and it was super cold and windy, so I decided that some tomato soup and grilled cheese was in order to warm up once we got home, and just some simple canned good old tomato soup. And I made a little ham and cheese grilled cheese, and this is my cat licking her lips because she wanted to eat it. And yeah, nothing is better than just some tomato soup and a grilled cheese. So I'm sure by now you've all seen Emily's salmon and rice dish, and I veganized it a couple weeks ago, and it turned out amazing. So I had a real craving for it. So I just air fried the little salmon ball things, and I made some coconut rice to go with it. Sprinkled it with a little bit of sriracha and mayo. My mayo never looks as pretty because it's not in a squeezy bottle. And yeah, it was so good. It hit the spot. So I started my morning off with another one of the pink vitamin drinks, and for breakfast I decided to make some chickpea fritters. So I seasoned up my chickpea flour with onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, paprika, added in some frozen onions I had left over and some more of my frozen bell peppers. I also cut up some mushrooms to put in. I put way too much veg in it. They were kind of overflowing, but I just fried them up, and then I served them with a little bit of sriracha on top. They were so good, and I also had a chai latte with some more of my restaurant quality foam on top, and it just makes all the difference. It's so good. For lunch, I decided to make a broccoli and cheddar soup, and I cut up a bunch of veg and made a little roux with everything to make it nice and creamy. And then you also are supposed to add sunflower cream, which I've never made before. So I did half sunflower, half cashew, just, not to shock the system. And there's Bandit just sniffing the floor for any leftovers he can find. And the soup also had pumpkin in it, which was weird but really good. And I also got my arm workout for the day, shredding in some carrots. It was really, really tasty. I think I would just do cashew cream next time because you could definitely taste the sunflower. And I also served it with a little bit of bread. And then I wanted to make some chai cookies. And I'm serious about it because I got out the beater. And they turned out so well. They weren't too sweet. They tasted like fall. And for dinner, I decided to make some fajitas because I had some leftover Gardein chicken strips left. So I cut up a bunch of bell peppers, put some beans in there, flavored that all up, cut up some avocado, seasoned that, and then I served it all with a little bit of tofutti and hot sauce, and it was really, really good, delicious. And I also had a little glass of apple juice with it. I was in the mood for an omelet for breakfast, so I grabbed my just egg and I cut up some of this fresh loaf of bread that I got, and I also had some leftover veggie sausages. So it's going to be like a whole good situation. And I fried up some mushrooms for the omelet and put a little jam on the toast. I also took my probiotic that I take every morning, and the just egg in a liquid form is amazing. I've been living without it, and it's been so sad, but now I have it and everything is fine, and it was really, really delicious. And I also had a little iced coffee as well. For lunch, I saw this pina colada smoothie idea, and it looked really good, so of course I had to try it out. So it was just pineapples, coconut milk, coconut water, and a banana, and I doubled the recipe just so I could make some for everybody, and it was surprisingly really delicious. It kind of tasted exactly like a pina colada. And then I also had some of this leftover spinach and bean dip and some chips and a little piece of chocolate as well. Fun fact, this Swiss chocolate is vegan, accidentally, I think. And for dinner, I made my mom's famous apple curry. It's so good. You make the rice with apple juice to make it extra appley, and there's also apple in the curry. It's usually like back in the day she'd make it with chicken, but I make it with chickpeas and cauliflower, and it's so warm and delicious, and it tastes just like fall. And I also had a bunch of bananas that were going bad, so I decided to make a little bit of banana bread. Half of the muffins with nuts and half without, because I love nuts in my banana bread, but some of my siblings don't. I also forgot to add the chocolate chips, so I had to just sprinkle them on top. My sister also made little buns to go along with the curry, and it was absolutely delicious. And for dessert, I had a little banana muffin. So it was my brother's birthday, and for his birthday breakfast, he requested waffles, and we made the same recipe that we always do, the Nora Cooks one. It's amazing. And I made a little berry compote to go along with it, and I fixed up the table with all the fixings. We got some Biscoff, some whipped cream, some apple juice, and I ended up having, I think, 6 with whipped cream and strawberry, and then 2 with Biscoff as well. It was really good. And for lunch, I just cut up an apple and had a banana muffin because we had a really late breakfast. And then for dinner, he wanted Wendy's chicken nuggets. And unfortunately for all the vegans, A&W took away their chicken nuggets. Like, the only thing that we really have left is KFC, always pulling through with the delicious chicken burger. So Tyler and I got a chicken burger with some fries, and I also had an iced tea to drink with dinner. And of course we had cake, and I had that with a little glass of oat milk.